I said Monday, I'm done being surprised by Jayden Daniels. So, yeah, they can win this. I'm not saying I'm picking them to win it.
Took you only 20 weeks.
Right. No, I mean, no rookie. You talked about it last week. Rookies don't win playoff games generally on the road. He's won 2, including one against the number 1 seed. And like you said, last time he played him, he threw 5 touchdowns. Now, Jalen Hurts got hurt. It was 7, about to be 14-0 when Jalen got hurt. But that defense was still there. And I get that can affect field position.
Still, that's the key thing.
Yeah, the defense was still there.
I didn't mean to interrupt you, Brew. We throw that game out because Jalen got hurt. And I understand that intellectually. However, the Eagles scored 33 points.
Right.
Like the Eagles' offense was, and everything would be different, and they probably could focus more on stopping Saquon with Jalen out and not being worried about Kenny Pickett. I understand all of that. And C.J. Gardner-Johnson got thrown out for doing C.J. Gardner-Johnson stuff. I get all that. But I rewatched that game last night that Coach is referring to, and I didn't look at I knew the score, obviously, but I didn't remember the turnovers. Like I didn't look at the box score before. I'm watching it, and I'm like, wait, they turned it over again? Right. I couldn't believe it. The 5 turnovers and early in the game got stopped on a 4th down around midfield. So 6 times, you know what I mean, they gave the ball to Philadelphia without it ending in a kick, a punt or an extra point or a field goal. And they won. And the road thing, I was the one hammering that point. Like, road playoff games are hard. Road playoff games for rookies are impossible. Well, here's the road playoffs this year. Jayden's 2-0. Everyone else is 0-8. Every home team has won every playoff game except for the 2 games Jayden Daniels walked into somebody's stadium. He walked out a winner. And so what is working against them is the other stat we've shown you, which is the rookies who've gone on these deep runs had great defenses. And Jayden has an average at best defense. And so that, that works against him. But I can't imagine. I know Philly wants this game in their building, so they're glad Detroit lost. But I can't imagine they're thrilled this is the team they're playing instead of Detroit. I bet they would have preferred.
You think so?
Yeah, I think they would have preferred anyone. Like, Detroit's the one you don't want to play because it's in your building. But the other one in the NFC playoff picture you don't want to play is the team the only team that's beaten you in 4 months.
Yeah.
Whose quarterback seems to have.
It's also the team that's red hot. They've won 6 games in a row.
You're big on this momentum thing. Can you tell? So I thought about this, and I'll ask you a specific question. But you obviously say whatever you want. This is why I have keyed in on your momentum thing. You are, we've got theories, and Nick's got his stats, and Brew is obviously cogent analysis.
Yeah, that's my corner.
And you are very much like in the weeds on like, well, when you look at how they can expose this A gap, and we're like, okay. But this momentum thing seems so fuzzy. It seems like outside of your lane, and the fact that you give it so much credence made me think like, oh, I guess this is a very real thing.
Well, I give it so much credence because of my experience. So that first Super Bowl, we're 5-5 through 10 games. And then we play the Rams. Our last loss was against the Rams. And so after that game, we didn't lose another game. And each week as we started winning, the confidence built up. And it became something that would be almost a self-fulfilling prophecy. So when we went into the playoffs, even though we were underdogs, and we had gotten the 2 seed, but really that was a function of Oakland at the time. It was the Oakland Raiders, had lost late in the season, so we kind of lucked into it. And then we were underdogs in our final 2 games, and significant underdogs. But for us, because we hadn't lost in so long, and because we had found ways to win in a lot of different ways, similar to Washington, there was almost that self-fulfilling prophecy of, are we going to be successful? Yes, we're going to be successful, because it kept being reinforced week in and week out. So when I hear Dan Quinn talk, it feels that same way. In their mind, they're not underdogs, and they love the idea that everybody else is putting them in that position, just like we did at the time, because we didn't feel that way. We felt really good about who we were when we showed up, and I remember, I think it was that year that the Steelers had already been booking their trip to the Super Bowl, and it was one of those things where it motivated the group, it galvanized the group, like, oh, that's what you think?
Okay. I'm excited to talk about this more because this is what I said about them, and I said this a few, recently, and some people I think kind of were a little bit confused by it because I said that the Commanders, this isn't house money. This isn't house money for the Commanders, and this is exactly why. Like, you can even see Dan Quinn. He's saying what I'm saying. This is not an underdog story. Like, this is like we believe we are where we're supposed to be. We believe that we can legitimately win a Super Bowl. This is not a Cinderella story. This is not a fairy tale. This is not, oh, hey, we're just punching above our weight. No, like, this is who we are. We are a legitimate top team in the NFL. That is what we are. We are better than the Lions. We are better than the Bucks. We are better than the Eagles. We are better than the Bills, the Chiefs, the Ravens, we are a top team. We got the most special quarterback in the NFL right now. We got a defense that's getting better and better. Yeah, you keep saying that we don't have any offensive weapons, that we only got one. That's not true, man. We got multiple running backs. We got, Jayden Daniels. We got Zach Ertz, who's still balling. We got McLaurin. We got De'Ami Brown. We got a squad. We got defensive dudes who can make plays. And that's who the Commanders see them to be. And so, again, even asking this question, buying that Jayden has another upset in him. Yeah, of course. Of course. And momentum matters, and it doesn't. It all depends. I think that momentum matters more for the players who don't really have this deep belief. Mahomes, for instance, doesn't need momentum because he already truly, truly has a deep, deep belief. Andy Reid doesn't need momentum. Spags doesn't need momentum. But maybe Xavier Worthy does. Maybe, maybe some of these other players that are truly unproven, that haven't been there, they need that momentum. They need to feel. They need those successes to add up, to really start to believe in yourself, to believe in what's possible, to believe in the team as a whole. This kind of like collective confidence. Because sometimes that's the problem, that you have some of these team leaders. They have to try to get everyone else to believe because they believe. There wasn't a season that Kobe Bryant never believed that he could win a ring. Not a single season. But it was trying to get everyone else to believe in it as well. So that's where the collective momentum can really go. Now, I'm a firm believer in throwing out that last game out. This is my one take that, Commanders fans love me, but it's the one take that they struggle with. Because again, we can't have it both ways. We can't say that it doesn't matter that Jalen Hurts got injured, but then on the same side say, well, the Eagles beat the Commanders because Jayden Daniels was banged up. You can't have it both ways. And that game was a mess for both teams. The Commanders turned the ball over 19 times, man. I mean, there was multiple fumbles, interceptions. It was a mess. And the Eagles lose their starting quarterback. I don't care how many points they put up or who was on defense. It matters. It matters. Not to mention, you then had Devontae Smith drop a pass that he catches 9,999 times out of whatever number I just gave you. 10,000? I don't even remember what I just said. And same thing with Saquon Barkley dropping a ball. They make that catch, then they win. So the Commanders could be oh, if we didn't turn the ball over, we would have won so much more. The game wouldn't have even been close. And the Eagles are well, if Jalen Hurts didn't get injured, we would have been it, because they couldn't run the ball either. They could not run the ball. They could not dominate the time of possession that they would have wanted to. There was lots of things that they couldn't do. And yeah, losing a key defensive player for the Eagles matters. I think Darius Slay went down for a little bit. And the Eagles, they don't have that depth necessarily. What makes the Eagles special is essentially every single one of their starters together. And when you take one piece away, it's things become more fragile. I think other teams are less fragile. The Kansas City Chiefs, for instance, are less fragile. Trying to think. I would argue that the Baltimore Ravens are less fragile. I think the Detroit Lions were less fragile, but they reached, this critical point. which again, to be clear, I said that the Commanders and Jayden Daniels would still do great even if their defense was full strength. But I think that they were more resilient, as we saw them losing key defensive players or key offensive players and not missing a beat until eventually things really kind of started piling up. And so I don't know if that's necessarily the case with the Eagles. And we saw that earlier on in the season, that when they were missing a piece here, a piece there, things were kind of like, oh, it's kind of shaky. That's probably the one main flaw of the Philadelphia Eagles. Where in years past, that wasn't necessarily the case for them. But definitely this year. That was I kind of reached that conclusion like back in like week 4 or 5, whenever they played the Bucks. That was kind of my conclusion of like, hey, you know what? I think this team can be great, but I think they have to be 100% healthy. Because then people are, what about the Chiefs? What about the other teams? Injuries happen. I go, yeah, it's fine, but sometimes that's the way how teams are constructed. That's the way how sometimes things are. That, you know, some teams, the way it just is, they can have some pieces go down and still be just as great. It's not clear to me that that's Philadelphia Eagles. And again, once you lose your starting quarterback, all bets are off. And the way how the Washington Commanders, the way how Dan Quinn organized the defense completely changed. They highlighted it on that very broadcast. It completely changed. So that's why, again, whether you're an Eagles fan or Commanders fan, I'm telling both fan bases, throw that game out. That game is irrelevant. It means nothing. It truly means nothing. Not to mention this year, this game now, it's different. Jayden Daniels is a better quarterback than he was in whatever week that was. Jalen Hurts is banged up, but Saquon Barkley's playing even better. You know, the defense is playing better now for the Eagles, but the defense is playing better for the Commanders. Lattimore is there. Like, so I'm not a huge fan of constantly looking at to me, it's not even worthwhile to rewatch that game again. Honestly, it's really not. So that's why I don't need to use those past games as a reference point as proof that Jayden has another upset in him. I think that the Philadelphia Eagles, again, as long as everyone's relatively healthy speaking, that the Philadelphia Eagles should, again, I'm not saying will. I can't be any more clear about this. I'm not saying will. Let me say it again. I'm not saying will. The Eagles should win this game. They should be the better team. But will they? That's the $1 million question. Because right now, the Eagles are not playing as great as people believe them to be able to. And the Commanders are playing better than people believe them to be able to be capable of. So that's what's really kind of interesting. There's the sense that the Commanders are playing better than they actually are, and that the Eagles are actually playing worse than they actually are. Whether that's true or not, that seems to be the general consensus. That's why the Commanders are favored, or are not favored. The Eagles are getting so much. And there's a reason why that people are complaining about the Eagles versus the Packers and the Rams. Like, what's wrong with the Eagles? What's wrong with the passing game? Can they keep winning like this? There's question marks about it. And same thing with the Commanders. It's, oh my God, I can't believe they're winning like this. Will they run out of magic? So the Eagles are not using any magic, but they're kind of sneaking on by. The Commanders are apparently using all their fairy dust and pixie dust, whatever. And it's like, will that run out? Are the Eagles getting lucky? Will the luck run out? Or are the Commanders riding on momentum that will also run out? Like, that's what kind of makes this game pretty interesting. Because you have two teams that are winning in two completely different ways. They see the Commanders as playing their best ball right now, better than people could have ever imagined. And the Eagles are winning, but they're playing their worst ball. Minus, a few defensive plays here and there and, some Saquon Barkley moments. So, yeah, it's going to be interesting. This game is also going to be, I kept saying that the Bills-Chiefs game is going to feel like the last, 30 seconds of a game. And, for the entire game, it's going to feel like that. And, I can't really get my finger on the pulse for this game. I just think that if you're an Eagles fan, every time Jayden Daniels and the Commanders have the ball, there's going to be a lot of angst. Anytime Jayden Daniels has the ball and there's just like that extra second where like anything can happen, he can throw, he can run, like there's going to be that feeling of like, oh, what's about to happen? And when he lets it rip, you're going to be like, oh God, please, please, please be too far, please be too short, please be out of bounds. Like it's going to be like, no, no. Or when he kind of scrambles and goes for a run, be like, please get knocked out before the third down, before you convert first down, please, someone catch up to him, and it's going to be just like this kind of like, oh my gosh, like at any given moment, anything can happen. Like literally like anything can happen. So I think this game will have a ton of angst, especially if the Eagles can't set the tone, if they can't set the terms and conditions of this game, that they can't establish, 21-3. And we are just going to run that clock and just dominate time of possession. Best of luck. If they can't do that, then this game can get kind of unsettling. And same thing, even if the Eagles are up by 21-3 or for, these are made up examples. I think even if you're a Commanders fan, you're still going to believe in the magic and what the Commanders will be able to do in, say, the second half or something. If Lamar Jackson was able to lead his team back to the final play, certainly the Commanders can. Zach Ertz don't be dropping no passes. But those are just my thoughts. I'd absolutely love to hear yours. What do you guys all think about the Washington Commanders? Are you buying that Jayden has another upset in him? And do you believe what Dan Quinn is saying, where it's not an underdog story? Let me know in the comments below. I read every single comment. So whether you agree with me or disagree with me, either way, let's get in some discussions. Let's get in some fights. But ultimately, let's just have some fun. And please do consider subscribing. We're building an amazing community here, and I absolutely love to see you part of it. I want to build something that we all genuinely feel connected to. Something that we're really excited to be part of. I think we're on our way to doing it. Please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, as it really does help with the visibility and the algorithm. Thank you so much. See you next time.